Welcome to I Do What I Do, where we explore how and why folks do what they do to forge their path and create fulfilling, squiggly careers. I'm Zara Bartels, once a dancer, now a creative operator. And in this first season, we're in London, once my home for many years. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a creative soul, or just curious about what makes people tick, have a listen. You'll be inspired to do what you do better. Let's go. Hi, ladies.
Hi, Zara.
Welcome, Samara, Keya, a Sistren, and also colleagues and friends, or ex-colleagues and friends. Welcome to I Do What I Do. Thank you for joining me. We're going to today talk about what you do, how you do, why you do it, all the things about doing, because as this podcast is born from my love of doing and achieving and just making things work. And I've always been interested in how do people do what they actually do? What does being a lawyer actually mean? So we're going to chat a little bit about that today. We're obviously going to chat about Sistren, which is your community legal collective. So ladies, would you like to introduce yourselves to the people?
You're gonna make me go first.
Oh,
yeah. I'll go first. Hi, friends. To viewers.
And everywhere else, podcast listeners.
I'm Samara Lawrence. I was born in London. I grew up in Devon, which is in the southwest of England. I grew up on what was a working farm in Devon, turned caravan park, but was very much still, I guess, a farm when I was growing up. So lots of pigs and chickens and cows.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of my youth riding around on quad bikes and generally being outdoors and growing a love for animals. I moved to London for university. Well, I guess moved to London for where I was born. Studied SOAS, which is the School of Oriental and African Studies. Studied politics there, and from there made my way to becoming a lawyer. First of all, I guess. Should I go through like a
You don't have to go through all of it.
everything?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, became a lawyer. Started off in a more corporate world and moved into the non-profit sector, which has now firmly become my home, my legal home.
Thanks, Samara. And what about you, Keya?
All right. Hi, friends. So I was born and brought up in India, New Delhi. I did my entire schooling there. All of my family and my kind of friend network remains in Delhi, so it's very much home for me. Moved to the US when I was about 19 for undergrad, and I studied at a liberal arts college in upstate New York.
What college did you study at?
Hamilton College. And I loved it. I was there for 4 years. It was a really bizarre existence, but
My hand is heavy, Samara. I apologize. Sorry, folks, for those who aren't seeing this. I'm pouring us some rum and ginger beer, and I'm just a little heavy-handed.
You're good. So I studied comparative literature, which is code for non-European, non-American literature, essentially. Yeah.
Studying.
Yeah.
The othering.
Yeah, exactly. And then I wanted to live in different parts of the world and work for a while. So I spent a couple of years just trying out different things. I worked in New York at a human rights feminist legal organization for a while. And then I moved to Jamaica, which is where my, at the time, boyfriend, now husband, was based. And I worked in Jamaica for a while. And then I moved back to India for a year and I worked with a large legal nonprofit there. And all of that work gave me a human rights lens into law. And so I decided I wanted to study law and become a lawyer. I moved to the UK in 2010 to study law, ended up spending 2 years at uni here, and then got recruited by a large law firm, which was really helpful for paying debts and
Definitely.
getting visa sponsored and that kind of thing. Worked at a large law firm for 5 years, moved into nonprofit law for 3.5 years after that, and here I am.
We are. Both of you have some amazing stories and trajectories, but you've come together and you now work together. One of the nice things about this podcast is that everyone that I'm talking to, I actively have a direct connection with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we know each other?
Yeah, we all worked at a nonprofit law
We
firm.
all did. And these are ladies that I connected with beyond colleagues. And that's what's really lovely. But now, more importantly, they work together. So you want to tell me a little bit about what you are doing right now after the corporate big firm and then the nonprofit firm? What's so special about what you're doing now?
I think for both of us in different ways, we just found traditional law firms, even though the law firm we all worked at was not necessarily a traditional law firm, but it was still within the construct of what law firms look like within the UK. And I think for both of us, for different reasons, we found that practice and discipline of law really constraining, and also found that we couldn't work with the kinds of people or engage in the kinds of law or legal advice that we wanted to in different ways. So maybe we can talk about, different ways in which we found that restricting.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
I'd like to hear more about that, because the other thing that I want to ask is, how do you lawyer?
Yeah.
Right? So what made it constricting?
I think law firms have a very clear hierarchy. So at the top of the food chain are partners who own the law firm, who take the share of the profits. And sitting beneath partners, you have what would be called associate solicitors. And it is very hierarchical. So below that, you'd have trainees, and below that, you'd have paralegals.
And then below that, you'd have your business services. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Everyone else that makes the actual business run.
Exactly. And markets it and sells the business. And for us, I think that hierarchy is like inherently problematic, because you're essentially reliant on a really small number of people to progress your career. And whether if they take a liking to you, whether you impress them or don't impress them enough, or for whatever reason, there's all these. So in any organization, but in law firms, I think particularly, there's so many kind of implicit biases that kind of come through. And I think we both felt that so many people come into these careers bright-eyed and, yes, I can do this and I want to make a change and I'm intelligent and hardworking, and like quite often this gets beaten out of you at quite a fast rate, and you can start to feel like, I guess, maybe self-conscious or not worthy. And there's all these kind of things that come up, and these anxieties and insecurities that can be almost fueled in a law firm environment. I think that was something that we maybe both experienced and felt like that wasn't really right. And actually, we're both smart people, and there isn't a reason why we need to have that fire taken out of us.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons.
One of the many.
One of the many reasons for stepping out of that space.
So what are you doing now that you stepped out of the space? Firstly, tell us a little bit about how you stepped out of the space and what you stepped into, but also what are you doing differently?
I think just linking into the last answer and taking up your question, one of the other aspects that we found quite constraining, problematic with the law firm is a law firm by its nature is quite, you're behind a glass wall, literally, metaphorically. You're in an office, often central London. You fall within the framework of how the law firm operates. Clients come to you to be able to access your knowledge and services, and then you exchange your knowledge in return for money. And that process and that structure means that who can access your services is a process of self-selection, basically. And it's people who can first have heard about you, who can overcome the intimidation of getting to a law firm, getting to lawyers, can pay the fees, etc., etc. And in some ways, it was ironic. Both of us worked at the same large corporate law firm before we moved into nonprofit law, though we didn't know each other back then. But in some ways, it was strange, because when you're in corporate law, you expect to be in a literal glass tower, and you expect to be inaccessible, and you're doing like these deals, which are multi-million pound deals, and that's the framework that you're in. When you're in nonprofit law, it jars a little bit more that you're in a glass tower and that you're inaccessible. And so you see the kind of community-centric, social justice-centric work that a lot of your clients are engaged in, but you're removed from that because you're the lawyer. So part of what we're trying to do is break that and be proactive lawyers rather than reactive, where clients come to you for advice. So we've been on this journey of thinking about and developing the idea of community lawyering and what that looks like in the UK. And I think we're really informed by the way that it's worked in other jurisdictions, but it's essentially trying to break out of the glass palace and make lawyering and legal advice part of the conversation around access to justice and what that looks like.
How does being proactive look like? Because if you think about it, as you said, people find lawyers when they need a lawyer. So they're actively searching for it. So the client always tends to be the active party. So when you say you want to be proactive and make it accessible, what does that, and I know you're thinking through it and you're working through it, but at the moment, where have you gotten to?
Yeah, I think a lot of partnering with community organizations. When we started this, we were really aware that we weren't in community spaces at all, and we weren't going to pretend that we were.
Yeah.
So we started off with a research project, essentially, where we went out and managed to connect with a few people that had deeper links into community to talk about our idea and what we wanted to start. and to be like, please, can you connect us to anyone that you think would want to participate or work with us? And then we set up conversations with people, and we consulted with a community centric researchers. They're called community centric research, to really help inform how we spoke to community organizations in a way that ensured that we weren't going in, parachuting in as these lawyers and then extracting information and then running away, and people being left out like they contributed to something but they've not got anything back from it. So we spent a long time thinking about how do we actually engage with community? How do we do that in a way that people feel like they're part of a journey with us and that they can be part of an output and that they see themselves able to access. So yeah, that kind of initial work at the beginning has really laid the foundations for us going forward. And we tried to make sure that we're not just in London. Like, we went to Leeds, we spent time with community organisations in Leeds, and we've really built, I think one thing we do really well is build relationships, and that takes time and it's very intentional. And I think you say as well, like, good people come together. And I think and when we launched, that was like the nicest thing about our launch, was just like seeing all these people that we'd met along the way, that supported us and we'd supported them, to come together in the same room. So yeah.
I'm so sorry I missed the launch, but I was on a beach. No, I genuinely am sorry I missed the launch because it looked beautiful. The pictures look beautiful. So where you're at now, what you said that you wanted people to not feel like they contributed to something and then they didn't see anything after. So where are we at now with that? What has been like the output of this thinking and working together?
Yeah, I think we're trying to explore it through lots of different avenues, so it doesn't look like one thing. But one of the things we did, particularly through the research, is produce kind of two tangible outputs of those conversations that we had with community organizations and activists and leaders. One was, based on your feedback, what does community lawyering in the UK look like? And it needs to be context specific for the organizations we work with, and we're trying to be responsive to the kind of input and feedback and knowledge that we've had from community organizations. For us, it translated into meaning things like pro bono models in law, meaning free legal advice models that law firms often offer, are important but inadequate in a community lawyering setting because they don't center partnership in the same way. They don't come with a access to justice philosophy in the same way. They're not geared towards supporting small community organizations, etc. So that's one way. And there are various observations through our report, but that's one example of how we're trying to say, okay, we're being responsive to what we've heard through conversation. The other is, we realized halfway through this research process that it did feel tip to just generate a report and here's our model of community lawyering. Thank you very much for the information. And so what we tried to do is think about what are the questions that we've been asked through this process of talking to people, and what expertise do we have that can help answer some of those questions, and of our response to that. So a community legal toolkit, which is essentially a legal toolkit, open source, free publication that we developed. We think it's really pretty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who aren't looking, I'm looking at a beautifully produced, what do we call this? Report, community report. It's the Sistren Legal Collective Community Legal Toolkit, Legal Structuring for Social Justice. And oh my God, this might seem really cheesy, but the quality, I'm so proud. It looks so good because I haven't seen it yet. I was, as I said, on a beach while they had their launch. And something as simple as the font is a really good size. It's easy to read. And what do you suggest is the use case for your toolkit?
We're still in the experiment phase around that, but I think basically what it is, we're trying to decentralize legal knowledge so that you don't need to come to us if you need information about structuring, like how to set up your organization. If you're a social justice led group or collective and you need to figure out where you go next, how do you set yourself up, how do you structure? So we're trying to, through this, basically go through a process where we're saying we're putting down the knowledge that we have into something external, which you can access for free and spread the word, and hopefully it's helpful.
Where can they access it if they don't have one of those sexy books?
www.sistren.co.uk.
Yeah.
Do you feel a little bit cheesy saying it because it's new and it's season though? Like, you gotta shout that from the rooftops.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, I think we're super proud of what we created, and I think the nice thing is that people can still come to us. They can look at this, but they can come to us with feeling equipped to have a discussion. I think that's often the nervousness when you approach a lawyer, that you like, they're like, you have no idea what you're even asking for. And I hope was that people have a starting point, they have a knowledge source that they can keep looking at, they can go back to. And the important thing with that was that we centered community voice throughout it. And so it wasn't just our legal knowledge, but it actually brought in the experience of people that we worked with into that, so that people see themselves and they see an actual. And I think that's the problem sometimes with lawyers, that we talk in these
Big words.
Yeah.
The putting the of in a different place, it completely changes the whole
Yeah.
sentence around. Yeah.
And the idea is this was like, this is practically what setting up a non-profit organization looks like for a community organization, to someone who's just working on something in their spare time. They've had an idea, they've tried to navigate it themselves. What are the stumbling blocks they came across? What are the things that are important to them? What are the things they need in the future? So yeah, the idea is that it's not just us speaking, it's a whole community and voice in that toolkit.
That's amazing and beautiful. And thank you. So, okay, let's pull back a little bit. So we're now at Sistren. You've built this beautiful thing. You obviously do have your other day jobs, but firstly, two very different backgrounds and two very yours is a British background, but silly, run around the pigs and quad biking. I did not even know that much, and that's quite amazing, but it explains so much in a way. Like, Samara is a sport junkie. That's the only way to explain this girl. Proper sport junkie, like on the Great British World Tag Rugby team, assigned, winning awards, all this malarkey. It's pretty brilliant. That's the whole people that we are. So, like, coming from not the typical lawyer background that we know and we understand, or that we see prevalent in the space, how do you think that's informed, one, coming to Sistren, but also how you engage with each other and your communities?
Yeah, I think coming from a background of maybe being different as well often can bring people together. I think the key thing that really tied Keya and I was Jamaica, and a common heritage and a common family tie to Jamaica. So my mother is Jamaican. I spent much of my childhood going there every year. I was being very annoyed about it, I think, at a young age. All my friends were going, it's like fun places
Like
America,
South of
France, or Turkey. And I was like, yeah, we're going to Jamaica again.
And now they're jealous.
Yeah.
But also, you two were in Jamaica the other day together, weren't you?
Yeah. And so Keya's husband is Jamaican, and so Keya, you spent many summers also in Jamaica, probably being less resistant than me.
Yeah, no, I loved it. But yeah, I've been coming and going for what, maybe over 20 years now. Yeah.
So it's been that long. Have you and Andrew, right? Did I get that right? You and Andrew been together that long?
That long. Yeah.
Holy wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That is very, congratulations.
I tended to spend quite long periods of time in Jamaica, so it didn't feel like a 2-week holiday that I was there for. It was like I was there for 4 months or 6 months, like
So you
creating a base there.
engage in the culture
Yeah.
in that way. So how do you think that, like, the exposure to Caribbean, because Trini girl over here, the exposure to the Caribbean culture, do you think that the way we live, which is very community based and very community oriented, and in the little things that I see, like, I was just home as well, and it was things like, I do not go anywhere without someone saying good morning and good afternoon, and that really makes me smile every day.
Yeah.
Right? And then I come back and people are sour. I was at the carousel getting luggage, and I helped this old lady with her luggage, and there were 7 men standing around me. And just that kind of, we automatically help each other. We naturally gravitate towards community support, all those things. Do you think that's, it sounds like a silly question now because it's clear that it did, but do you think that really informed the way that you wanted to come out of your well-earning corporate lawyer careers to create this space for people?
Yeah, I never really thought about it coming from a Caribbean kind of background or ethos, but maybe now you think about it, it must be like this.
Even your Indian culture as well.
I think for me, the Indian thing much more than I'm not Jamaican and I don't pretend to be Jamaican, but there are stark differences between both cultures, but there are also similarities, and there are enough similarities that Jamaica really feels like home for me, and it feels like family, and it feels like friends. And so I think there's a resonance between Indianness and Jamaicanness that allows me to feel connected in those ways that doesn't exist with Britishness or here. And I think that sensation or experience of I quite proudly, I'm a British citizen now, but I'm quite proudly not British.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah, and I don't want to try and be British. And I think that if I assimilated more in some senses, maybe the law firm culture and the kind of structures here would have been more. I was perfectly functional within them, but it never felt like home. It never felt comfortable. Whereas Sistren does feel like a space that is home and it feels comfortable. And a lot of that is to do with being off somewhere else. And we wanted to project that in the name as well and in the communities that we work with and all of that. So yeah, definitely it feels like a more comfortable space.
yeah.
Yes.
Sistren is a good name
It
too.
is. I think, and the stepping outside of this kind of what could have been a comfortable life for us. We don't, it's comfortable, but we've been rebellious. And I think maybe that comes from like the Caribbean side as well, and maybe Indian as well. And this kind of like wanting to live an authentic life. And that's something that felt genuinely true to us, and not being prepared to settle in our current in the environments we were in, and knowing that there was more. I think this thing we were just like, there's more to that. I remember us having that conversation.
Yeah.
There's more
to life. Yeah.
this.
This can't be it.
There always is.
This career, there's more we can do. I think that comes from somewhere outside of
yeah. And I think maybe the other bit of slight similarities were both in some ways quite nerdy about the law. So you want to enjoy what you like are nerdy about as well. And I think we weren't enjoying it. And we found a way to marry the law and like the boring dryness of the law with a space that we're actually really excited about.
So how do you become nerdy about the law? Because I can't, I am, if we're going to use the term nerdy about the law from the perspective of, I could be a Donna from Suits. And the perspective that we all see law, like I am a procedural TV junkie.
Yeah.
Any procedural, I will watch, right? That's the way me and my mother bond. Like, we're literally, I'm watching the FBI's tonight. Yes. And what are you watching on this? And SVU? And that's our thing. But obviously, and especially having worked in a law firm, that's not the real thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's really important that you are nerdy about the thing that you do, especially we spend so much time in our careers. So what is it that makes you nerdy about the law? What is the specific thing in law that you're nerdy about? Yeah.
For me, I think I was a lot nerdier when I found something which, and I think I like this generally, anything that's a bit different, that sits outside of like normative frameworks and structures, and that is able to unlock some kind of a different path for someone. I think I got that during like the Black Lives Matter movement, and I started to find out by these different kinds of legal structures, which were from like, a time around like Victorian era, and that was helping people to unlock cooperative movements. And
can I pause you? They don't teach you that in law school? How did you now how do you now learn this in 2020?
The racial justice organizations that were what came to us as clients were like, we want to take on this legal structure, and we were like, what?
No, that's hilarious.
And at the time everyone was, oh no, like we don't really do that. And I was like, no, like they've come to us with that, and they've done their research, and they were able to link it back to a place of justice and collective action, which just sparked my interest. And then I found books on this.
What's the name of the structure?
They're called community benefit societies or registered societies generally.
Okay.
Read
your toolbook, people.
But this, I think, when you find something which communities are passionate about, that have been able to unlock things for community, and so when you like manage to link your passion for just like in our case racial justice and social justice with legal structures or legislative framework, that's when you get nerdy and excited about it.
Fair enough. What about you, Keya? Do you have a way that you get nerdy about it?
Yeah, I think for me it's more general than Samara's, which is that I grew up in a household of like academics, and books were really central. And my mom was a teacher and educator, and my dad was a publisher, and my granddad owned a bookstore. And so like books and reading and academia was very much a part of my comfort zone growing up. And so for a long time, the default kind of felt like I'd either be a teacher or a historian or an academic or go into like university teaching or that kind of thing. But I was always slightly frustrated by the theoretical nature of that. And I quite liked finding practical applications of larger philosophical ideas. And so I think law just became a way for me to marry like academia, philosophy, theory with, okay, so how do you put this into practice and how do you advise people around that? And so it brought those two elements together really nicely. And it just felt like it was also meant that I could read a lot and write a lot. So I tend to be much more like, we have slightly different ways of being nerdy about the law. And Samara is really good with the really hands-on practical stuff. And I get really excited about the theoretical stuff. And we should be like blogging about this or writing about this or researching this. Yeah.
It's a perfect mix, right?
Yeah.
You need each of those to make it work and make it move forward. And the fact that you both have like special nerdiness makes it really useful. With the nerdiness, let's get to the idea of how do you lawyer, right? So there's a level of nerdiness, there's a level of understanding the legal theory, there's a level of understanding your structures. But when it comes to actually being a lawyer, how do you do that? And go.
That's a good question. How do we spend a lot of time talking, a lot of time listening. And I think especially if we're talking about being Sistren lawyers,
Yeah.
what we really have prioritized is hearing people's stories. And actually, when you hear people's stories and you spend time listening and actually listening to how they've got to where they are and what informs their priorities and their decision making and their lives, that actually is really central in giving good legal advice, community-centered legal advice. So we spend a lot of time just chatting and sometimes crying with people and hearing and having multiple conversations before we even give any advice.
And I think the couple of other things, so like listening is a really key part of it, and we try and give a lot of space to not just get to the point, but like just chat and get to know the person first and what's going on in your life and why are you coming to this and what's going on in our lives. And so our conversations tend to be pretty long, longer than you would normally get with a lawyer. The other thing that I really like about how we lawyer is that we always do it together.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the Sistren ethos, and it comes out of both of us were fairly mid-career when we decided to go out on our own, and it felt like a really scary thing to do, especially with law, where you're embedded in such hierarchical structures that you always need a partner to check your work, right? Or you always need a senior lawyer to tell you that you haven't made a mistake. And so us doing it together meant that we were spotting each other all the time, and it's just become a way of working, and we really enjoy it. So it like goes to the Sistren ethos as well.
How did that make you feel, like being a junior lawyer or learning? Because I don't even like the word junior, right? Because you've gone through all these years of education as well. You're just as intelligent, if not more, than some of the current longer legal minds. How did that make you feel, always being spotted, but also spotted by someone who doesn't look like you, doesn't understand your background, your culture, because they're generally white males, let's be like, how was that one of the founding things with Sistren, in the sense of, or was that a catalyst for Sistren?
Probably both. Yeah. I think both just had a bit of enough of maybe in some sense doubting yourself. I think I said at the start, I wanted to feel confident in my work and my abilities, and sometimes I think you've just got to back yourself in that. And I think it's been really nice recently because we've had some like amazing successes in our like legal work. And we're like, we did that. We didn't even have to ask anyone else. It was so nice. And you realize like and I think I noticed the biggest shift in my legal work when we started to think about building Sistren. And I started to imagine, I was like, okay, so imagine that you don't have anyone that you can check this with. How are you going to approach your work differently when you like, and take full ownership? I think actually sometimes it can make you maybe a little bit lazy as well if you've always got another, know that the default is that it's going to go to someone else to sign off on or to check or to make amendments. So I think when I started to take full ownership of my work and start to really take control of it, I think my legal analysis and legal work improved and my confidence in myself as well. So
That's amazing. And also, because I worked with you both when we were all in that firm, it also in that way, knowing where you're coming from as well, I feel like that's such a massive piece of growth for you. And it must feel so amazing.
I feel like a completely different lawyer. And now we have other jobs as well, mine's another legal role. And it's completely different. It's like I feel worlds away from that place I was in. And I do generally feel like much more secure in myself, which is and I think that kind of gives you so much in life, is to feel secure in your career and your intellectual abilities and all that sort of stuff.
And I think it's the difference between mentorship and supervision. You know what I mean? Like supervision tends to possibly make people feel like, yeah, you're being looked at and you're being watched over, and then you get nervous and you can't. you're not yourself, right? It's like when you're in an interview and they give you some crazy assessment where you're never going to, if the setting isn't setting you up to be comfortable, right? But now that what does that look like for you as someone who is in the middle of their career, building something new, and you're like, okay, I've always had the training and the oversight of someone else. Now you're doing it on your own. What does that look like from your perspective when you say you're taking ownership of your work and you are looking at things differently? What is the actual practical approach that you're taking?
I'm not gonna lie, I miss having somebody else who says, yeah, you've got it right or you've got it wrong. Sometimes I really do like it is a source of comfort.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And it's how we've learned to operate. And I think it's been a real learning curve for me, at least, to have to take full ownership of everything we do. I think in practice, it just means that we've had to take leaps of faith on our own work to begin with. We've been really transparent with the people that we work with, that we don't have the answers to everything, that, we've said, this is not, we've never advised on this before. We'll go away and do the research. We'll come back to you with what we know. We'll just discuss through it. And if you're comfortable, we'll proceed. And we've actually done that in some ways. And then, as Samara said, now it's been some time where we've been going through that practice and we've had a couple of big successes or places where our work and research and ideas have paid off and they've translated into organizations being able to set themselves up and get off the ground. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And that feels really validating. So it feels like increasingly as we do that, we don't actually need that supervision. We know what we're doing.
Are there any recent successes or wins that you can share? Because we all know in the legal space, there's a whole bunch of confidentiality around things.
A really good one we had recently was a migrants' rights organisation. They're a community organisation based in Leeds, and we had been supporting them with a charity application. A difficult one in the context of charities generally. The culture wars means that migrant-based organisations are really scrutinised by...
And the Rwanda bill.
Yeah, the Rwanda bill as well has meant that I think we always knew it was going to be a difficult application, but we were pretty confident. We were clear that everything they were doing was charitable. So there might be some pushback. We did not anticipate the level of pushback we got from the Charity Commission.
Are you surprised by that, though?
Considering the degree of it, we've never seen the degree of...
Wow.
The kind of level of patronising tone in the correspondence we had from the Commission was like on another level. And so we were really like, it was jarring, to be honest.
Yeah.
And we were feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they've asked this many questions. So you start to question yourself.
Yeah, we're like, we got this completely wrong.
This.
Yeah.
But we were like, no, we know that we're right here and we know this is charitable. So we spent ages working with the organisation to frame a response to
Which was like 15 pages long.
We've never written something that long back.
This sounds like it's about to become a new precedent, as they like to say.
We were like, if this doesn't happen, we're going to judicially review this because it's
amazing,
outrageous. But we spent, it was a 15-page letter. We broke down like every single question they'd asked, wrote a really robust response. We like really looked into all the guidance of the Charity Commission to make sure we were hitting all the points, basically quoting back their guidance to them. And yeah, and we submitted it being like, oh, I was like, this letter is so good.
You should frame it, or parts of it, not the full 15.
Frame it. And then we got an email back from the Commission basically being, have your charity registration.
They're like, yep, okay.
No question.
Congratulations.
It was honestly such a big win for us, for the organisation, for like migrant justice, just like period, in terms of setting itself in the context of charitable activity and public benefit being like the key thing that the Commission was challenging us on. And so, yeah, it was a huge win for migrant justice, I think, in this country, for that organisation to feel confident in the work they're doing, and for us to feel confident in our... I was thinking if we had been at the law firm, that would have been a really tricky letter that would have needed loads of partnering.
I don't know if it would have happened.
Frankly,
I don't know if... I have a funny feeling that it would have been like, the Charity Commission raises a lot of points and maybe we got it wrong. I feel like it might have just landed there. But I guess that's the beauty of rebelliousness, the resilience, all of the things that you bring together. So as a lawyer, in your toolkit, what do you think are some of the skills that you need to not only have off the bat, but really consistently engage in and maybe constantly iterate on and develop to be a good practical lawyer, not
Yeah.
the Harvey Specter, but doing the thing that you're doing, which is working for the average person, the normal person.
Mhm.
Yeah, we thought about this a fair amount as we were going through that research process, because we realized there are some skills that we have and there are others that we don't, and that we have to be better at developing. And I think in a really basic sense, like empathy and kind of empathy over and above, or all else, more important than efficiency, more important than knowledge, even, and just an understanding of where people are coming from. I think the other thing that for us was important is like a contextual understanding of where your client is coming from. And particularly because our focus is on working with marginalized communities in the UK, having an understanding of the broader context of racism, of colonialism, of misogyny and patriarchy, of ableism, which is something that we're learning about. We didn't have that knowledge, but we're trying actively to cultivate that. So that broader, not legal, but contextual understanding, which impacts how you advise as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Those are two like slightly more abstract things have been important.
Contextualism is important. I can see that. What about you, Samara?
I totally agree. And we were saying as we were walking, that I was like, we need to be reading more. We need to have a book club as part of our collective.
That's a good idea.
Reading histories like social justice histories, lessons, essentially, because the language and the framing that people come to us with, we need to be on top of that as well. We need to be able to speak the same language as people, and that they feel that when they're talking to us, that ideology resonates. And one thing we talk about in our community lawyering is working in solidarity with the people that we interact with, and that our politics doesn't need to be perfectly aligned, but it does need to be aligned.
Yeah.
Because we need to be able to support organizations in our personal lives as well as like in our professional. So I think, yeah, reading, understanding people's histories, understanding our own histories, understanding the history of social justice in this country and abroad is actually really fundamental to us being like excellent community lawyers.
Nice. So let's talk about you ladies more. And we've talked about the work, we've talked about the, what do you call that thing? The motivation, the where we're at, what you're doing, some wins. How do Keya and Samara navigate doing work that is emotionally and mentally distraining?
I actually think our work's really energizing.
That's amazing.
I think of all the days I have, our Sistren Day gives me the most energy. And I think that's because it's work we are passionate about and that it's our work. And it is exciting. And most of the conversations we have, like, oh my God, that was so fun. And that person was so interesting. And people are generally like really, our work is generally very well received, which is really nice as well. But yeah, it can be. It's a lot. We have both have two jobs, like, and Kaya has babies. So yeah, it can be tiring, and we don't work like it is not just like one day. We work in the evening all the time and on the weekends, and so yeah, it can be a lot.
Yeah, I echo everything. We find it really energizing, and both of us tend to look forward to Fridays, which is our Sistren Day, because it feels like, okay, it's going to be a really busy day, but we're going to feel really happy all the way through it and be energized through it. Even when we talk, like we often talk after my daughter's gone to bed, so 9 or 10 at night, or like on the weekends. It feels, yeah, we're working, but it's also two people really interested in what they're doing, having a chat about something that is
Speaking
interesting.
your soul, speaking your spirit.
Yeah.
And that, I think, frankly, as someone who's come from a creative space and also navigated into corporate space and going, oh no, that's not for me.
Yeah.
There is something really important when you're working on something that you connect to.
Yeah.
And you're right, it does energize you. It does make you feel significantly better, and it's worth putting in the hours, right? What are the, other than the fact that Sistren does energize you, like, we're human, we need to do other bits. What are the other things that you do to maintain your sanity and keep the grounding and also keep you going to the next energizing Sistren conversation?
Yeah. I think it's very different for both of us,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah. For me, like my downtime stuff is reading, basically, and I go through phases where there's too much reading in my job, and so there isn't reading outside. But my reading tends to be very kind of fiction based, and I really enjoy that. I watch a lot of crap TV.
Crab TV is best.
Yeah, it is the
Absolute
best.
best.
Yeah. I adore time with my family. So with my daughter and my husband, and that is my detox, relaxation, fun time. And we do weekends is yeah, very different for Samara and me, but my weekends are play dates and mummying. But I love that. It just gives me so much. So yeah, that's my
What's your favorite crap TV show?
just rewatch Schitt's Creek for the fourth, fifth
I
time.
need to finish watching that series. It's one of those I'm like, I really enjoy this, and then I got sidetracked and I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
What about you, Samara?
So yeah, Kay and I are in very different. I am child free and love playing sport. That's and exercising. That's my go-to. So I play loads of tag rugby. It's my sport of choice. So my weekends often consist of training, and my weekdays are also playing matches and going to my new favorite gym class in Brixton.
Which is what?
Brixton Street Gym, High Achievers Lab, if anyone's interested.
No, we're not interested.
I love going out as well. Like I'm going out tonight with friends. We're going to see Hagen and Friends at Village Underground. So I love going to. You're looking like, who is that?
Yeah, I'm about to be like, who's Hagen and who are his friends?
Hagen is a DJ who I guess is like the Afro House vibe. I
Okay.
don't know if you'd know what that means, but
I do know what Afro House is. I'm literally half African. What are you talking about?
Afro House.
Music. I can probably beat you back on some music. Yeah, but I won't be going to the Afro House. I don't like people that much.
I'm in that phase of my life. I'm holding on for dear life.
Man, you got to enjoy it and you got to do every single bit of it. But now I cannot actually fathom going out to a club.
Yeah.
Like, I can go out. I will go out to a festival, but you see me at festivals. I'm like, I'm on the back.
Yeah,
I'm in the outskirts.
Right.
I'm like, where there's air,
Yeah.
where there's no one around me. If I want to dance, I can dance comfortably. I don't need your armpit under me. I don't need your sweat on me. As I've gotten older, I love that. I love the release of going out, but the engagement with the people,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't love.
Yeah. Samara's looking at me like, yeah, you know what she's Yeah. Yeah. Also, I'm an introvert. And so I retreat from people to recharge. I don't go out to people to recharge. And so that space where I'm chilling with three really close friends and we're having like a drink together in the evening or like having a chat, like that's my zone.
So you both have very different childhoods and different parents, and now your own adults. What do you want to leave in this world?
I feel like I think about that quite a lot because, yeah,
Giving you the big question.
yeah, no, I think a lot about that. And I guess because I have a 6-year-old and I have a newborn on the way, not just what do I want to leave in this world, but what do I want my kids to know me as? And it used to really bother me. This is before I had kids, that I might be in a place where I'm working as a corporate lawyer and I have kids and my kids ask me, what do you do when I'm a corporate lawyer? That really bothered me. So I think like part of this like shift and making sure that I'm doing something that is values aligned for me in the world is very much a sense of I want my kids to be proud of me for the right reasons and to like instill that sense of you need to be doing something with your lives that is value aligned for you as well. And I can't teach them that, I feel, if I'm not doing that for myself. So it's less like macro and about the world. It's quite personal for me and about my legacy for my kids and how they see me.
I think that's beautiful. It's really nice. What about you, Miss Samara, young'un over here?
It was funny because when we did our launch, I said to Keya, did I say cheap? But like I can just, if I died tomorrow,
Yeah, she did.
because I feel like we've given something to the world which is meaningful, and I was like, it felt like a sense of almost like a sense of relief. Okay, I feel like I'd done something really important. So that was nice to be like, yeah, I'd leave these in the world.
Yeah.
And they're useful, and I think I really resonates with what you're saying about values, and I think I spent a lot of time thinking about doing work and being in spaces which align with my values. And I think I'm now like really aware when I'm not, I can like feel it in my body. So a bit of that. I think, yeah, I love connecting with people, and I love like, okay, is always like, you just know so many random people.
Yeah,
You really do, though.
she does.
Like, you really do. And I do think, though, that your connection to community, which comes from the sport and all of that and the exercising, is a big part of that. Like, You were part of a running group at one point, are you still?
Yeah.
Like running group, tag rugby, Brixton Street Gym, dog
walking. Yeah.
What? And there's like, oh, you see your cousin in the park.
Yeah.
Nikolai in the park and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great, I haven't seen them in months.
That's probably more than you did in the past.
Exactly. Dog walking. I do think that is really a kind of,
Yeah.
what's the word when the bits are all in your DNA?
Yeah. I think there's something in that for me. It's a little bit of a superpower in a way that I think I've got for myself. So yeah, I don't know, just connection and like bringing people together is, I don't know if I'd leave that in the world, but I think I leave bits of myself like all over the place. And then those people, and I love it when people come together who know me and who know us. And yeah, that's a really lovely thing as well.
Oh, that's good. If there were, just tacking back and connecting to the legal space, if there was one thing you could change, considering who you are, all of that you bring to it, what legacies you want to leave, if you could leave a legal legacy or change part of the legal landscape as part of your legacy, what would that look like?
I think maybe just, and we're doing this in some ways, creating a space where like other lawyers who feel like us have a space that they find through us. But yeah, part of what we're trying to do is bring in other lawyers, predominantly women of color, into this space where they might have been either burned by the structures they've been a part of, or they just don't feel at home as part of that, and create a space where there is an alternative. And so if we create something that is lasting in some way that allows other people to engage and find home in the way that we have, I think that would be huge.
Yeah, I think if we can inspire people to be like, you don't have to do it that way. Like, you can do it the way that feels right for you. And I think hopefully that's a legacy. I hope we'll leave that kind of legacy for people. Who knows?
You're going to start a legal revolution.
Yeah, that people see it and they're like, there are other ways to be lawyers and that you don't need to fit yourself into this mold. And I think when I started off as wanting to be a lawyer, I think I was at university, went to one of these events, and I ended up speaking to this one lawyer about, I was like, oh, but how do you, I think he was talking about his like being radical. I was like, how do you make sure you don't lose that radical nature and spirit you have as an undergraduate student? And he was like, Samara, some of the best lawyers are radical lawyers.
Would you consider some of what is known as the best lawyers right now radical?
I think radical and best, you're doing the best work for you and for your community. And I do think that people that step outside of these very normative frameworks are doing something radical. And I think so yeah, you can live like your true values and be really good at your job and not have to conform.
Nice. And thinking about the legacies and what you want to change, what's next? What are you going to do next?
I'm going to have a baby next. But no, I think it's a really hard question because maybe like part of what we've held on to with Sistren is also maybe it's a layer of protection for ourselves, but it's also just we will keep doing this as long as we can keep doing it, and it's not the end of the world if it ends, because we're living our lives and our careers in the way that we want, and we've never been too wedded to the idea of we need to create like an organization or a behemoth structure, or this needs to become a law firm, or there needs to be like our names attached to it, or legacy, or so. It's really hard because even when we plan for Sistren, we plan for, with difficulty, 2 to 3 years ahead, not 5 or 10 years ahead.
Even in 2 months, I have no idea what we'll be doing. It could be completely different. I think we've always been like, life can take us in any direction, and we're both like generally relaxed about that. And we've always said, as long as this works for us right now, then we'll keep doing it. In 6 months' time, it might not work. Who knows?
Yeah.
So we'll just see.
Okay. And on that note, I'm going to take us into what I call Lipton Tea Time.
Oh,
no.
I have to do it on my phone because I very smartly forgot my notebook that has it. You know how I stay, right? So it's fully laminated and everything. But here we are. We figured it out. And that's the thing, right? We pivot, we make it work. So James Lipton used to host this show called Inside the Actor Studio. It's quite well known. He's talked to people from Warren Beatty all the way through to Ryan Gosling. Oh, that's two random white boys, boy. He talked to the Denzels and the everybody's. So he always asks these same 10 questions at the end of everything. So obviously we'll have you ask, you answer. But what is your favorite word?
Serendipity.
Nice. And while Samara waits, why serendipity?
It feels like the meaning is nice, but it also just has nice sound in alliteration. It's literary, but it's also
That's a good,
like a cool meaning.
yeah, that's a good point. What about you, Samara?
I like my name.
And you know what? I dig that. I fully endorse that. That's a good approach. Does your name have a name
Yeah, it means watched over by God.
in what language?
And sorry, that's in Hebrew, it means watched over by God. In Arabic, it means beautiful brown. And I just like writing it. I think it spells nicely. Yeah.
Nice. And what is your least favorite word?
No.
No is your least favorite word?
Yeah.
But, okay, why no?
It's just so jarring.
I love the
No,
way
it like stops you, it like invalidates you.
What about if you're using it in a validating way, as in boundaries? Or I don't want to do that. It's my choice.
Yeah. I think the way it's been used for me has always been like it stops me from like progressing a thought or something
Ah,
rather. Yeah. So I think I guess when it's used to me,
mm-hmm.
I can find it very disarming.
That's really interesting. See how people always have different perspectives? What about, and why but for you?
I guess I was thinking about it in the context of when stand-up comedy and in improv, they always teach you to yes and.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking of but as the
Antithesis
of yes and, which is often, yeah, you're right,
Yes,
but. And yeah, and just the and is so powerful. And it was such a small little shift in my thinking, but I think it's really important for how people relate.
Those were two very lawyery answers. Yeah, like, and when I think about the two words that they are and how they can affect legal language, that they're quite powerful in legal language if you really think about it. That's really interesting. What turns you on?
I think intelligence.
Yeah, I think difference. Someone who doesn't conform to the norm, I find it's really attractive.
Nice. And what turns you off?
Misogyny.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sexism.
Yeah, I had a bit of that recently. I was like, look, get
It's worse, honestly. And what sound and noise do you love?
I guess my happy place sound is the ocean water.
Yeah, that's calming.
Yeah, I was thinking wind in trees. I've got a
That's very specific. Wind in trees.
blowing of leaves. I think about big banana leaves blowing in the wind.
Huh.
Yeah.
When I think of big banana leaves, I think of home, obviously. Then I also think of, oh, my sister would know the name of this bloody frog. You know, there's the tiniest frogs in the Caribbean that make the loudest noise, and it's like the Caribbean nighttime cycle.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
it is. I
Yeah.
I can't mimic it, but yeah, interesting. next time I'm home, I'm gonna have to try and pay attention to listening to the wind in the trees. What about a sound or noise that you hate?
I've got so many sounds that irritate me. Yesterday, this man was just like, bing, next to me. I didn't have it. Oh my God, I have it all the time because I text you when I'm at Brits Impact.
Yeah, you were.
Yawning, just repeated yawning. And that really stressed me.
Go home and sleep, dude.
It was just crazy. I was like, are you okay? But yeah, any annoying, coughing, yawning, that stuff.
What about you?
I think shrill small dog barks really annoy me.
They have Pompax?
I don't know what that is.
That may be a Caribbean.
But I love dogs, but I'm quite a big dog person, and like the yappy barks really annoy me.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And what is your favorite curse word?
I feel like we say oh fuck. No, I don't know.
You're an adult. You're allowed to curse.
Yeah.
You're gonna go with oh fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
Mine is definitely Hindi curse words. I don't know, there's so much behind them. They're very misogynistic for the most part, as curse words tend to be. But I just feel at home in Hindi curse words. So I think like chutiya. Chutiya is like the C word in English.
Yeah.
Is probably my favorite curse.
So if you had to say, so my favorite curse word is your mother cunt, right? Like, how would you say that in
Hindi? Machod.
Machod?
Yeah.
It sounds like way more. I love it. No, I'm gonna have to practice that. I might need to record it so I can use it. And what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I'd like to be a writer. I feel like I maybe will one day. So I think, yeah, professions are very siloed. So that's a thing I would like to be one day.
I can see that.
Yeah, I was thinking that when we were walking here. I was like, in another life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's still,
Yeah, there'll
do
be
it.
time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about you?
I would quite like to be a TV presenter. Yeah,
Oh.
on the news. I quite like this kind of vibe. This is nice.
No longer wanting to be, was it a vet that you said? Did I make that up?
That was in my youth,
Yeah.
but that would incur a lot of science and study, whereas
Yeah. And also probably putting your hands in places that are not cute. Yeah. And what about a profession that you would hate, that you don't want to do?
Anything in finance?
I feel that. I feel that.
I think I really struggle to be a teacher. I think I'd find it really hard when children wouldn't listen to me
Yeah.
and I'm trying to teach them something helpful for their future.
Partly why I don't have kids. Just the idea of the fact that you think you fully know better all the time. There's going to be times when you know more than me or you know better than me and all those things. But in general, I'm trying to help you be a better human.
Yeah.
It's that part. You're not getting it.
Yeah.
You know what? As they say, who don't hear does feel. And I'm just going to have to leave you to it. And if heaven did exist or does exist in your world and got to those pearly gates, welcomed by whoever welcomes people at the pearly gates, what do you hope they would say?
Yeah, that's so existential.
Say about it's like on arrival.
Yeah, what do you hope they'd say to you?
I hope they'd be like, I don't know, that there's even more to come. Like the best is yet to come.
You're dead. How is there more to come?
Oh yeah. It's
It's interesting. So you think heaven's going to be this whole second life if it exists?
that there's even more for us coming. I
Okay.
think that would be it.
I feel like mine is the opposite. I feel like mine is like, here's a really comfy bed. You're done. Like, you did it and go chill.
This is the introvert and the
Yeah, maybe.
That might be right because that's my vibe as well. I'm like, I want them to be like,
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah.
Have a drink.
Yeah.
And they're like, come on, another life to go.
Yeah.
Send me back. Oh my day, that's wild. Ladies, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm
Yeah.
really chuffed that you're here and I'm so excited about all that's to come and what you've done. And I'm so thrilled to have met you. Typical, can leave the history behind, but meeting the characters and the people that you take forward with you, I think is one of the most important parts of your career and what you do. And I think it's been really lovely and I'm really happy that you are still in my space. And look forward to all that you're going to do. Who knows? Maybe next time we'll be back and Samara will be presenting and Keya will be talking about the book that she's written.
Yeah, maybe.
You've won some landmark cases
Yeah.
and you've put some people in their place around what it means to be a real, proper, good-hearted, clear, directional, and focused lawyer that's working on the good bits of the world. And it's been a real, sincere pleasure, and I'm so excited for you. So
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
That's all, folks, for today's episode of I Do What I Do. Biggest thank you to you for listening and to my guests for sharing their journey. I am Zara Bartels, and a super duper special shout out to the incredible folks that supported me on this creation. Keegan Simon, individual, for my logo and social graphics. Nikolai Labari for my theme music. And Andres Albert for being there and doing all the things while we recorded at TYX Studios in King's Cross, London. Walk good, keep doing what you do. Until next time.